Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Emergency Nerds. We are here. It's not really an emergency. Well, not in the moment. I think it's the prelude to the emergency. Norm,
Yeah,
Norm Morgenstein is
yeah,
with me tonight. Norm, it's great to see you. I wish it were under different circumstances, as the saying goes.
yeah.
We are here, of course. Everybody who's watching, and thank you again for joining us. Everybody who's coming over from the Twitter feed, and of course, all of our regulars and our moderators to watch President Biden's farewell address. And it's a very complicated situation. Um, and I've been trying to figure out what exactly it is that I'm feeling because I'm sad, I guess, but full of dread, perhaps. But I think it's also going to watch President Biden. I assume this is going to be about the accomplishments, the very real accomplishments of the
Yeah.
administration. And Norm, I'm very eager to hear how you feel, how I feel, because I've been watching the Australian Open. It's as if you get off the court and you say, I just played the best tennis match of my life until I lost the tiebreak in the third set.
Yeah. Um, it's an odd time, as it has been in so many ways since November the 5th. We have this, lengthy transition period, unlike a parliamentary system where the power switches overnight. And so we've been kind of normalized.
Uh-oh. Right. Wait, what was that? Just want to make sure I don't know if that was the live feed yet.
That was maybe he was rehearsing.
Implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans. This is my final address to you from the American people, from the Oval Office, from this desk as president. And I've been thinking a lot about who we are, and maybe more important, who we should be. Long ago in New York Harbor, an ironworker installed beam after beam, day after day. He was joined by steel workers, stonemasons, engineers. They built not just a single structure, but a beacon of freedom. The very idea of America was so big, we felt the entire world needed to see. The Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America, it was built not by one person, but by many people, from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America, it was built not by one person, but by many people, from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty is not standing still. Her foot literally steps forward atop a broken chain of human bondage. She's on the march, and she literally moves. She was built to sway back and forth to withstand the fury of stormy weather, to stand the test of time because storms are always coming. She sways a few inches, but she never falls into the current below. An engineering marvel. The Statue of Liberty is also an enduring symbol of the soul of our nation. A soul shaped by forces that bring us together and by forces that pull us apart. And yet, through good times and tough times, we've withstood it all. A nation of pioneers and explorers, of dreamers and doers, of ancestors native to this land, of ancestors who came by force. A nation of immigrants came to build a better life. A nation holding the torch of the most powerful idea ever in the history of the world, that all of us are created equal, that all of us deserve to be treated with dignity, justice, and fairness, that democracy must defend and be defined and be imposed, moved in every way possible. Our rights, our freedoms, our dreams. But we know the idea of America, our institution, our people, our values that uphold it are constantly being tested. Ongoing debates about power and the exercise of power. but whether we lead by the example of our power or the power of our example, whether we show the courage to stand up to the abuse of power or we yield to it. After 50 years at the center of all of this, I know that believing in the idea of America is respecting the institutions that govern a free society, the presidency, the Congress, the courts, a free and independent press, institutions that are rooted, they just might not reflect the timeless words, but they echo the words of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Rooted in the timeless words of the Constitution, we the people. Our system of separation of powers, checks and balances, may not be perfect, but it's maintained our democracy for nearly 250 years, longer than any other nation in history that's ever tried such a bold experiment. In the past 4 years, our democracy has held strong. And every day I've kept my commitment to be president for all Americans through one of the top years in our nation's history. I've had a great partner in Vice President Kamala Harris. It's been the honor of my life to see the resilience of essential workers getting us through a once-in-a-century pandemic, the heroism of service members and first responders keeping us safe, the determination of advocates standing up for our rights and our freedoms instead of losing their jobs to an economic crisis that we inherited. Millions of Americans now have the dignity of work. Millions of entrepreneurs and companies creating new businesses and industries, hiring American workers, using American products. And together, we've launched a new era of American possibilities. One of the greatest modernizations of infrastructure in our entire history, from new roads, bridges, clean water, affordable high-speed internet for every American. We invented the semiconductor, smaller than the tip of my little finger, and now is bringing those chip factories and those jobs back to America where they belong, creating thousands of jobs. Finally, giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug prices for millions of seniors. And finally, doing something to protect our children and our families by passing the most significant gun safety law in 30 years and bringing violent crime to a 50-year low, meeting our sacred obligation to over 1 million veterans so far who are exposed to toxic materials, and to their families, providing medical care and education benefits and more for their families. You know, it will take time to feel the full impact of all we've done together. But the seeds are planted, and they'll grow and they'll bloom for decades to come. At home, we've created nearly 17 million new jobs, more than any other single administration, a single term. More people have health care than ever before. And overseas, we've strengthened NATO. Ukraine is still free. And we've pulled ahead of our competition with China, and so much more. I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed. That's why I've upheld my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example. I have no doubt that America is in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before, more than a century ago. But the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to. Workers want rights to earn their fair share. They were dealt into the deal, and it helped put us on a path to building the largest middle class, the most prosperous century any nation in the world has ever seen. We've got to do that again. In the last 4 years, that is exactly what we've done. People should be able to make as much as they can, but play by the same rules, pay their fair share of taxes. So much is at stake. Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country, from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history of the world. And the rest of the world is trying to model it now. It's working, creating jobs and industries of the future. Now, we've proven we don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. We're doing both. But powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. We must not be bullied into sacrificing the future of our children and our grandchildren. We must keep pushing forward and push faster. There's no time to waste. It's also clear that American leadership in technology is an unparalleled source of innovation that can transform lives. We see the same dangers of the concentration of technology, power, and wealth. His farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence is the most consequential technology of our time, perhaps of all time. Nothing offers more profound possibilities and risks for our economy and our security, our society, for humanity. Artificial intelligence even has the potential to help us answer my call to end cancer as we know it. But unless safeguards are in place, AI could spawn new threats to our rights, our way of life, to our privacy, how we work, and how we protect our nation. We must make sure AI is safe and trustworthy and good for all humankind. In the age of AI, it's more important than ever that the people must govern. And as the land of liberty, America, not China, must lead the world in the development of AI. In the years ahead, it's going to be up to the president, the presidency, the Congress, the courts, the free press, and the American people to confront these powerful forces. We must reform the tax code, not by giving the biggest tax cuts to billionaires, but by making them begin to pay their fair share. We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year term limit, time and term, for the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress. We need to amend the Constitution to make clear that no president is immune from crimes that he or she commits while in office. The president's power is not limited. It's not absolute, and it shouldn't be. And in a democracy, there's another danger. to the concentration of power and wealth. It erodes the sense of unity and common purpose. It causes distrust and division. Participating in our democracy becomes exhausting and even disillusioning. And people don't feel like they have a fair shot. We have to stay engaged in the process. I know it's frustrating. A fair shot is what makes America America. Everyone's entitled to a fair shot, not a guarantee, but just a fair shot, an even playing field, going as far as your hard work and talent can take you. We can never lose that essential truth, remain who we are. I've always believed, and I've told other world leaders, America can be defined by one word: possibilities. Only in America do we believe anything is possible. Like a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claremont, Delaware, sitting behind this desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. That's the magic of America. It's all around us. Upstairs in the residence of the White House, I've walked by a painting of the Statue of Liberty I don't know how many times. In the painting, there's several workers climbing on the outstretched arm of the statue that holds the torch. It reminds me every day I pass it of the story and soul of our nation and the power of the American people. There's a story of a veteran. This is a veteran, the son of an immigrant, whose job was to climb that torch and polish the amber panes so rays of light could reach out as far as possible. He was known as the keeper of the flame. He once said of the Statue of Liberty, quote, speaks a silent universal language, one of hope that anyone who seeks and speaks freedom can understand. Yes, we sway back and forth to withstand the fury of the storm, to stand the test of time. A constant struggle, a short distance between peril and possibility. But what I believe is the America of our dreams is always closer than we think. It's up to us to make our dreams come true. Let me close by stating my gratitude to so many people, to the members of my administration, as well as public service and first responders across the country and around the world. Thank you for stepping up to serve. To our service members and your families, it's been the highest honor of my life to lead you as Commander-in-Chief. And of course, to Kamala and our incredible partner, the historic Vice President. She and Doug have become like family. And to me, family's everything. My deepest appreciation to our amazing First Lady who's with me in the Oval today. For our entire family. You're the love of my life and the lives of my love. My eternal thanks to you, the American people. After 50 years of public service, I give you my word. I still believe in the idea for which this nation stands. A nation where the strengths of our institutions and the character of our people matter and must endure. Now it's your turn to stand guard. May you all be the keeper of the flame. May you keep the faith. I love America. You love it too. God bless you all. May God protect your troops. Thank you for this great honor.
Democracy is always an unfinished.
Norm, I would like to start with you.
I was a little surprised that he didn't really get much into some of the quite remarkable accomplishments of the administration, the domestic accomplishments in particular. The ability, even though it got taken away, to reduce child poverty in half through the child tax credit. He sort of alluded to the CHIPS Act, but he didn't talk about all the things that he did to strengthen the safety net to help us. He just alluded a little bit to getting through COVID. I mean, there's a lot there that it's clear most Americans either don't know about or don't appreciate. And I thought in that sense, he deserved a little bit more of a victory lap. But what I found, and I thought it was, I thought it was going to be longer than that. I thought he would talk a little bit more about the nature of his administration and a little bit more directly about the threats that we have going forward. But I was struck by his endorsement of some of these reforms, that he came out four square for an ethics code for the Supreme Court and term limits there. That was not what I was expecting to hear from him. And I love the fact that he called for a constitutional amendment to overturn the immunity decision of the Supreme Court. But there were two parts of this, just to reiterate, that I thought were missing. One was, it really would have been good, I think, for everybody listening, for him to frame and discuss the accomplishments and the fact that he's leaving. History is going to judge his domestic presidency, I think, extraordinarily favorably. It was a stunning set of accomplishments, not just because it was a single term, but fighting against huge headwinds, narrow majorities in Congress, or sometimes not majorities at all, and a deeply tribalized political system with a united and vicious opposition. He could have done more of that. But even more important, he should have used this last effort at the bully pulpit to get more specific about the dangers that we face, especially as you watch these confirmation hearings from Trump and the thugs who are going to join him in office, and a little bit more about how the Supreme Court, the courts more generally, the Congress with these Republicans, have taken away a good share of the basic bulwark of opposition to the move to autocracy. And frankly, I would have loved for him to take a little shot at the free press, which is being taken over by those oligarchs he mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. And it was strangely muted.
Yeah.
You know what I want, before I'm still sort of processing some of this, and Waj, before you got here, I was saying to Norm that I can't quite figure out how I'm feeling about this.
Yeah.
And now actually I feel pretty sad right now. Most, like, it wasn't sad. I wasn't sad beforehand, but I am now. And I think part of that is for the reasons Norm laid out. So I would love to hear what your thoughts of this address are.
So let me start with the positive. I do think when all is said and done, and we look back in history, assuming the human species survives this thing called climate change that Donald thinks is a hoax, this will go down as that type of presidency sandwiched between the chaos of Donald as some semblance of normalcy. What happens when you have at least some stewards, some people committed to the Constitution, some people who at least try, with all their flaws. I've been critical of Biden. I'll criticize him when it's necessary. That tried to do something, right? Something positive. We had Donald preceding him, who lied during a pandemic that killed over 1 million Americans and incited a violent insurrection. And then we have President Biden, accepts that Democrats lost and has conceded along with Kamala Harris. And I think students of history and Americans will look back and say, you had a choice between a competent Black Indian American woman who was a senator, a vice president, an AG, and a district attorney, and you chose the criminal who quotes Hitler. And you chose the person who doesn't believe in climate change and who empowered the oligarchy and took away all our safety net when you could have chosen that. And another thing I'll say about Biden, I'm glad he mentioned his accomplishments, but I will say that Americans no longer have the appetite or the attention span. He could have gone on and on a bit more, but does it really matter? I'm sure he's probably like, it doesn't even matter. I do like the fact that he mentioned the Supreme Court reform. I think, he had to make some pithy comments. So he went Supreme Court reformary, and he also said a word, which I really liked, and this is the positive. He talked about the oligarchy. And I think him mentioning the oligarchy, mainstreaming that word as in part of his final address and hearkening it back to Teddy Roosevelt, when we saw a crackdown on the oligarchy of that day and age, right? When we saw a crackdown on these monopolies, when we saw a crackdown on these, the concentrated trust of power between the wealthiest white men on earth, him sending that as the warning shot gives Democrats an opening, one that I think Senator Murphy and a few others have ran with, that they, the 1%, are against you. They, the 1%, are the only people that Donald cares about. They, the 1%, Elon Musk looks down on you and calls you, quote, I'm quoting him, contemptible fools. Now the painful part. Despite his domestic achievements, despite the fact that he got Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? Despite the fact that he had Kamala Harris, the first black female as his VP, despite the fact that he did stabilize the shit that, sorry, pardon my language, that he was inherited by Donald, he leaves as a president who was unable to save democracy, was unable to restore it, was unable to empower the watchmen and the guardrails. Instead, Merrick Garland, a convicted criminal whom Jack Smith said the DOJ would have essentially convicted if he wasn't elected, goes back. Democrats are now moving to the center, whatever that means. And the fight that he should have brought, in my opinion, and this is my criticism part of it, was also missing from this address. It was almost like, kind of like a eulogy, a self-eulogy, if that makes sense, Mary. And, with Jimmy Carter also being buried last week, Danielle and I have said this on your show and on our show, we just felt like democracy was being buried alongside Jimmy Carter. And things work in cycles, folks. Nothing lasts. Donald will go. Fascists also go. Republicans and Democrats will go. But it's hard to get back a democracy once you lose it to an authoritarian. And this is why we're in the long walk, and we're going out with a whimper instead of a bang. That is my critique.
Yeah, I do want to talk about his discussion of the oligarchy, because that's when his remarks took a turn, which was not entirely expected. But Waj, you said that historians will look back at the choices the American voter made in this election. But I would suggest that they will also look at the choices Biden and his administration, including his attorney general made. This I think the clip I'm about to play will be looked at very differently depending on what your perspective is on those things.
And so much more. I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed. That's why I've held my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example. I have no doubt that America's in a position to continue to succeed.
Norm, I believe that we are this close to witnessing the end of the American experiment. And I believe that what is, I guess, viewed as doing the right thing by people like President Biden is actually making unacceptable concessions to the people who are most responsible for bringing us to the brink of the end of the American experiment. Your thoughts?
We keep coming back to Michelle Obama's "when they go low, we go high." And that, in effect, is what Joe Biden said there. And I certainly hope that that's not the mantra that continues for Democrats who are left to fight back, or for others. I do think having a peaceful transition, saying we lost fair and square, I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with going beyond that. And I will say, we have, one of our listeners and viewers said, we have 5 days for Dark Brandon to return. there is one thing in particular that I hope he will do, and I will be crushingly disappointed if he doesn't. And that is to order Merrick Garland to send him Jack Smith's report on Mar-a-Lago and release it. I don't care what a judge who has no jurisdiction, Aileen Cannon, says. And it's shameful that Merrick Garland didn't do this himself. But there's an opportunity to do that. And he's got 5 days to do a few more things that one hopes will keep some of those guardrails intact. And I don't know what he's going to do, whether it's pardons that remain, more executive actions that at least will be harder to overturn, including some involving the climate. But I was not happy with that, the way he left that statement either. And it's Democrats who, once again, always say our actions speak for themselves, and they never do. It's not like most Americans are going to look at Democrats standing back and not challenging Trump and saying, oh, see, now Republicans should do the same thing. That never works. You can't just say our actions speak for themselves. You have to act and act aggressively. And I have to say, Mary, this is Biden in his final days. And it's a mantra that I've repeated with us a number of times. When I've looked at the Democrats in the Senate this week, including at these confirmation hearings, and looking back at the 2 months that they had that they blew when they had the majority after the election, I do not have any significant confidence that they're going to be the guardrail. They have the filibuster, as if, John Thune has said, we're going to keep it for 2 years. That will last only as long as the filibuster doesn't really hurt them, because they don't have stuff that they're able to do otherwise. And if we don't get some hardball negotiations, because we know that Republicans in Congress have, especially in the House, have narrow margins and are deeply divided. If we don't get Democrats doing hardball on the debt ceiling, they're the only ones we have left. I saw Jeff Bezos. We had this letter, quite remarkable, signed by 400 of the journalists and others working at the Post, including their stars like Carol Leonig, basically a direct shot at Will Lewis, the publisher, and the direction that the Post has taken, indicating that more were going to leave soon, and saying, you got to sit down with us and tell us where we're going. And now Bezos is going to the inaugural. All of these people, watching the CEO of Coca-Cola sit with Trump. The one thing he didn't do was put his thumb up with Trump with the inaugural presidential Diet Coke. And you see everybody kissing Trump's ass in anticipation of where we're going. And we needed Biden in many ways tonight to send a signal to congressional Democrats. I'm leaving, you're not, you better step up to the plate. And he should have shamed these journalists and these owners of publications who are destroying their own ability to have a free press. And he didn't do any of that, and I'm sad about that.
Yeah, and again, he had 79 days to warn the American people about what was happening. He had 79 days to make the argument you just made, Norm, which is, yes, obviously, we need to restore order because there was not a peaceful transfer of power 4 years ago. This is why. This is why there will be this time. However, we will not uphold any niceties because the incoming administration poses an existential threat to American democracy, to the American people. And as we're seeing what's happening in California and what may happen with the Russia, hostile foreign powers, illegal invasion of our ally Ukraine, to the entire planet. And the idea of accommodating that has sickened me. And I mean, on the one hand, I'm grateful for that reason that President Biden didn't do a victory lap about all of the administration's accomplishments, because I kind of don't want to hear it right now. But on the other hand, even though, I mean, I've been saying for years now that this is the most successful presidency in my lifetime, but if you fumbled the ball on the most important play, why am I using a sports analogy? I don't know.
Well done.
I don't
That
even
was
watch
good.
football, but
Playoff time.
I know you guys do. So look at me being influenced by you. If you're fumbling the most important play of the game, saving democracy, I don't want to hear about how many jobs you created, because guess what? This incredible economy that you saved from the jaws of global economic collapse is going to be co-opted by the incoming administration. In other words, Donald will take credit for it, and two, destroyed by him. So I did not want to hear that, but I completely agree with Norm. This was an opportunity to remind. The reason to do it was to remind Americans what they're going to be losing.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, and put that marker down.
Exactly.
And to remind them the dangers facing them, not just from Donald Trump, obviously, but from the people with whom he's surrounding himself.
I don't think he can do it, Mary. I know people don't like to hear that, but I don't think he can. And if we have to be honest, and we should be honest, if you look at him ever since March, like compare him since last February to now, you've seen, mentally he's still there, but a deterioration. He's 82 years old. I mean, it's clear. And I don't think he has the ability to sit there and make that type of an argument that, say, Kamala Harris could have, or Elizabeth Warren still can, or a AOC or a Jasmine Crockett. He just can't. And he was even having trouble getting through that speech. Yes, he has the age, and yes, he had. I'm trying to be very fair also with his stutter, but he just doesn't. I'm being as honest as I can. And that's what I'm saying. It's a reflection that he kind of is going out with a whimper, not a bang, both figuratively and literally. And look, what I would have said is Republicans took away a woman's right over her body. We have to fight.
Not even a topic of conversation anymore.
Because he never mentions abortion, right? I would mention another word that I didn't hear, but if you did, let me know. Climate change, which is going to be the significant threat to all humanity.
He alluded to it in the vaguest possible way when he said, look, from North Carolina to California. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but the other guy doesn't believe in climate change. We do. Take care of yourselves, Americans, because this is a species killer, right? The violent insurrection. He kind of alludes to it, right? I would go one after another. Vaccines. At a time when polio and measles are making a comeback, vaccinate yourself. I'm so proud that we promoted vaccines and saved people from COVID. Like, these are things that me, top of the head, I would have just if I was addressing the nation, if you give me 6 minutes, I'm like, I did this. That's that guy. We did this. We did the guy. He doesn't even have to say Donald. We all know. And so it's a reminder for some of the people, there's still some things worth fighting for. There's stuff that we've done as a form of resistance. There are threats, and you have to band together. But what it ends up with, and like it ended up with, and we talked about in the last Nerd Avengers, which was, what day is it today? Wednesday? I think it was Tuesday. God, I don't even remember. I think Norm was talking about it, as well as, you can't simultaneously, Mary, tell me Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. He is an authoritarian. It's fascism. And then say, hey, Donald, come by and sit down in front of this huge fire in the White House.
Let's have tea.
Yeah, have some tea. Would you like some cookies? And then, Donald Trump, he is the most unfit man. He's a vulgarian. He's a criminal. He's going to go after, Project 2025. Oh, look, Obama and Donald are sharing a nice guffaw, a chuckle. Like, what are you doing? And so this is why I think with President Biden's exit, with everything that he's done, okay, the positives. And some people might not like hearing this, but I have to say that I kind of echoed Norm's point based just on what I've seen Democrats not do in the past 2 months as they've held the House. They're not built for this fight. They're not made for this moment, Mary. This is a fight and a moment Where Donald next week, the first thing he's going to do, he's going to pardon the violent insurrectionists. Pete Hegseth is going to be our Secretary of Defense. A Russian stooge, Tulsi Gabbard, is going to be the head of our DNI. RFK, an anti-vaxxer, is going to be the head of HHS, right? During a time when vaccine hesitancy has gone up and polio is making a comeback. Kash Patel is going to be the head of the FBI. Elon Musk and billionaires have their fingers in all the cookie jars. We need fighters. And until the Democratic Party embraces a fighting spirit, both in rhetoric and deed, Mary, we're going to get this. This was, look, so I read some of the comments, give the guy a break. He's, okay, fine, I did. 82, diminished, but he could have done more. I'm sorry, he could have. And he could have said more.
Well,
let me just add, Mary,
sure.
I'm sorry.
No,
just following on what both of you have said, if he had said, here is the economy I'm leaving behind, and here's what Americans need to be wary about, aware of, and fight against. A tariff war that could create inflation again, and we've got it down to 2% and a little bit more. It took a lot of effort. They could blow it right back up again. Here's what they're trying to do. This oligarchy, you talk about the oligarchy. What are they after? Ginormous additional tax cuts that will not benefit you, the working class of America, but the billionaires who already are super wealthy. Talk about the dangers and the specific policies that he's already mentioned. Talk about some of the people he's bringing in and what they'll do to shred the fabric of our democracy. And, we know, just as you said, Mary, that this is the second time that Donald has been lucky inheriting a great economy, an economy which he has said is the worst in the history of the world. And you can bet your life that on January 20th, he's going to say, we've already turned it around.
At 12:01 p.m.
For all the good stuff. And we already know that the day after the election, half the Republicans who said the economy sucks were suddenly saying the economy's great. So that's already happened. You need to lay out at least a framework that then the people who we hope will fight will have something more to hold on to. And he didn't do any of that.
And to those who are have an issue with our critique, this is not about he didn't speak loudly enough, or he was, it didn't have a lot of energy behind it. This is about his rhetoric. This is about the words he spoke, not how he spoke them. This is a speech that was prepared well in advance.
Yeah.
And there could have been many hands in it. And that is unacceptable, considering the precipice we find ourselves on. And, to your point earlier, Waj, you said President Biden could have been laying out this case. So could Kamala Harris have been. So could every single cabinet head, every single Democratic senator, every single Democratic congressperson. And here we are with people like John Fetterman going down to Mar-a-Lago because we needed another Kirsten Sinema or John, what's his name? Manchin.
Joe Manchin.
Right. Joe. I see they're like the same person now. Yeah. What is, I think Adam calls him Fetter Manchin, which is good, a good portmanteau. So I want to play the clip about the oligarchy again, because it reminds us that he knows, but just can't quite go far enough.
It's also clear that American leadership in technology is an unparalleled source of innovation that can transform lives. We see the same dangers of the concentration of technology, power, and wealth. His farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking.
Okay, there's more, but name names, please.
Yeah.
Give us specific examples. This stuff is happening right now, right in front of our eyes. The money is changing hands. Talk about these obscene confirmation hearings and the obscenely, not just unqualified, but dangerously unhinged nominees who, I'm not going to be as cynical about it as you, Wash. I have to hope that there are some limits, but Norm, in watching the Hexeth thing yesterday, I actually, oh my God, they are going to confirm him.
They are.
And in the weeks weeks immediately following his nomination, I didn't think that was possible, even with these Republicans, because it was so bad. And here we are. So I don't know if we should be surprised if they actually do get through Tulsi Gabbard, a known Russian asset, Robert Kennedy, a known psychopath who wants to kill our children with preventable diseases that we've already eradicated almost, or Kash Patel, who's a conspiracy theorist who's going to be running the agency he blames for January 6th.
What struck me so much during the Hegseth hearing wasn't just his lies and the dissembling all of the stuff he was prepared to do. Joni Ernst was a victim of sexual assault in the military. And it's clear she's up in 2 years. We have Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro and others warning her in advance, you will have not just a primary challenge, but untold sums of money spent against you. And instead of standing up for something that I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, really cares about and believes in, she caves. And it itself was a harbinger of things to come. Unless you have Republicans who force somebody out, as they did with Matt Gaetz, before the confirmation vote. If we have a confirmation vote where you have 2 Republicans maybe who vote against, but they need 2 more, and they would be in the spotlight, and you're going to have Musk and everybody else going after them, they're not going to reject any of these people. And that's, deeply frightening, especially, for all of the horrors of some of these people. What Gabbard, Patel can do to our safety, our freedom, our democracy is chilling. And they are utterly unqualified for these positions, utterly dangerous, and that we cannot even find 4 Republicans who would stand up and say no. We know we're going to have more pandemics. And, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. might blow his confirmation hearing enough that, they can say, whoops, this is too much, maybe. But at this point, I wouldn't bet that any of them are going to be rejected.
Nope.
Yeah, because that would be a repudiation of Donald.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable because he is, going to use a technical term, insane. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all jargony on you guys, but Waj, I think, again, missed opportunity. And this is not about beating up on President Biden. This is about yet another instance in which there were people paying attention.
Yeah.
And a difference could have been made.
Yeah.
Republicans, there is not one left. This is a wholly co-opted party. And I think Biden at least should have gone directly at Gabbard and Kennedy for this reason. It's not because I think Hegseth is less dangerous. It's not that I think Patel is less dangerous. And I also think they're also deeply unwell people psychologically and
Yeah.
emotionally.
Yeah.
It's because it is much simpler to say you will see immediate damage and danger to our country with Kennedy and Gabbard. Hegseth and Patel, I think it would take a while for the damage they're going to do inevitably to become apparent. We're going to see with Kennedy cases of it's already happening.
That's right.
Cough, measles, polio. I never thought in my lifetime I would say that, right? So that's an obvious thing that we can track and people will see in their day-to-day lives. Gabbard gets in as director of national intelligence. How long do we think our allies are going to continue sharing classified information with us that keeps us safe from terrorist attacks, which, by the way, are constantly being planned against us? So just speak to those very real, immediate dangers, please, somebody.
So I was because I'm a masochist, I did Piers Morgan today, and I went up against Michael.
You've got to stop.
It was 3 versus 1. Michael Knowles of Daily Wire, David Rubin, who's accused, along with Tenet Media, of being an unwitting idiot of Russia. I don't know if you've seen that DOJ investigation where, like, literally Russia paid Tenet Media and they're promoting Russian talking points. And Piers Morgan, who seems to have completely bent the knee for Donald. And I brought out 2 minutes because it's 3 against 1. My co-panelist
was so unfair. You could have taken on 10 of them.
I know. I was going to say, come on, bring it on, Piers.
No, so
I can handle more than 3 of you.
I did pretty well. I did my 2 minutes, and I went down the laundry list of stuff that we said about Pete Hegseth, and then yes, my love. Here, I'm on. Say hi to everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I love you. Okay, so I'm saying that after 2 minutes of the laundry list, the gotcha that's going viral in MAGA, it's only MAGAverse, and that's what I realized is they live in Earth 3, was Mary. They said, what was Pete Hegseth's tattoo? Do you know? And I'm like, wait, I just mentioned that his colleague called him out to be an insider threat. And they said, you don't know what the tattoo is? Gotcha. And they spent 2 minutes like juveniles laughing about that. But sandwiched between that was me and the co-panelist, who then talked about the threat of Hegseth and the threat of sexual assault and sexual abuse in the military, right? All the laundry list of why he's completely unqualified. And to be fair, Mary, fair and balanced, to give an olive branch, I said, listen, Marco Rubio, I disagree with this guy, but at least he's qualified. You don't see us going up in arms about Marco Rubio. We disagree with him, but this man is thoroughly unqualified. And you know what, Mary? They didn't care. Instead, they came back with pro-Crusades, pro-Crusades, anti-climate change. Apparently, Pete Hegseth's a victim, and he's absolved himself. Everyone has some improprieties. Completely glossed over the NDA, right? Completely glossed over his alcoholism. So when I saw that, and coupled with what Norm said, that Joni Ernst did a complete 180, said that she's voting for Hegseth and refuses to meet with the woman, the victim of sexual assault.
That was the salt in the wound, Waj.
Yeah. And then so I think, she's crying. Is everything okay? 1 second, my queen. Okay, I'll help you.
Well, so, I don't blame her. She knows what
understands what's happening. Totally. But then you look at Tulsi Gabbard and you look at RFK. The dangerous thing about RFK is he's been sane-washed. We've seen New York Times and other headlines saying, well, he's right about this. And then with Tulsi Gabbard, Mary, and this is the failure of Democrats, you had her own staffers just last week say what? She brought RT talking points. Her own staffers. These are MAGA, like Republican staffers, right? So here's a golden opportunity to do hearings that Norm has talked about on Hegseth, on RFK, on Tulsi Gabbard. With RFK and Tulsi, you might have got some traction, but now this is the cynic in me. After seeing them all fold for Hegseth today, after going through that 1 hour, because once you do the Piers Morgan thing, the good thing about it, the only good thing is you get to see how MAGA thinks. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, they're going to roll over RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and anyone who Trump wants. It's all about loyalty to Trump. You're not a threat.
There's one other development today that's particularly chilling, which is Mike Johnson is moving off Mike Turner as the chair of the Intelligence Committee. Mike Turner is a MAGA guy, but he is a patriot and honest about intelligence. Now, I don't know who's going to replace him, but this is an overt move to say somebody who would take on Gabbard and take on the attempts to hollow out the intelligence community, remove the professionals, give secrets to our enemies, and almost certainly replace him with a flunky, a lickspittle. So these are consciously people who are going to undermine America's national security to bow down to Donald Trump. It's frightening. It's not just the Senate.
No, it's absolutely deliberate. And just quickly to the point of saying, I just want to read, there's an article in the New York Times about the dangers of raw milk. And the subhead was, despite the serious risks of drinking it, a growing movement, including the potential health secretary, Robert Kennedy, claims it has benefits. Should we take them seriously? Well, you just answered your stupid question by saying that it's incredibly dangerous to drink. Are you kidding me? But this is what we need to be alert to. Listen,
and now we have bird flu, Mary. Sorry, now we have
H1N5. It's yes. We're going to talk about this obviously more tomorrow, but we've been looking at your comments. Thank you so much for them. And there are some people who do feel like we're being a little hard on President Biden. And I think part of that is because there have been so many missed opportunities, and some of that is because we care. We care so much about what happens. And I just want to close we will be brief, but I personally want to say that President Biden, again, the best president in my lifetime. He's been an exemplary public servant. And part of what I'm feeling is the tragedy of having Donald Trump replace him, which is similar to how I felt about what happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016, but with extra danger added. So this is not about impugning President Biden's character. Obviously, you're never going to agree with anybody does, and we all have legitimate disagreements with how he's handled certain things. We can talk about that all later. But as a human being, I admire him enormously. And I think that this country or a 49% of this country's voters did him and Kamala Harris an just sort of unspeakable disservice. Norm?
No, I think you're exactly right. He has had a terrific presidency. I struggle with one other element of this, which is there are people who voted for Donald Trump because they want him to do all of the horrible things that he's going to do. There are a whole lot of others who had no clue what they are facing, but they enabled him to be in there to do this. And I want to feel sympathy for them when their lives go south, because he is going to do the stuff that we warned he would do and that they either didn't listen or dismissed. But at the same time, I can't help but feel some sense of schadenfreude that hoping, actually, not because I will revel in their pain and dislocation, but because I hope this will jolt some of those people into realizing that this belief that, you could blow up government, you could get rid of all the experts and things will be better, they couldn't be any worse, will start to rethink. And then it's going to be incumbent upon Democrats not just to sit back and hope that there'll just be a backlash and then they'll be back and they can do the same shit that they've done before without framing it in a way that Americans can understand what they're getting that's good for them. But it's hard to not to feel some sense that you're going to get what you deserve because you brought us to this point.
Yeah, and I can't disagree. And yet I also feel like that's a terrible position to be in, even if it's justified. Walsh, last thoughts? Your meeting.
My last thoughts was thank you all. It was my baby. I was with 3 kiddos and my wife.
She is so beautiful.
No, she's very, very sweet. And she was like, she wanted the phone, and then she took the phone to my son, and my son tried to fix something. She goes, he called me a brat. And then meanwhile, Ibu said, I fixed it for you. She goes, okay, thank you. And stopped crying and ran away. Look, what I will say is this, because we're talking about my kids, it is bleak. It's going to be rough. It's going to be tough. We're in for the long walk. This is not going to be a 2-year project, a 4-year project. But then I think, look, I had my kids. They're very sweet. I love my kids. And I think our kids, regardless if they're my kids or your kids or everyone else's kids, the young generation deserves a better chance. The young generation deserves better from us. So it's up to us to take a rest when we feel low, to exhale the anger. And it's okay to be angry. You should be angry that you're losing your rights and your freedoms. And then get yourself back up and get into the fight. And what we can do, everyone, I think, has a superpower. Being kind is a superpower, being empathetic, especially as fellow Californians are suffering right now, sending donations, being good parents, teaching people to respect each other, running for school board, right? Being good to your Jewish neighbors, Muslim neighbors, and Christian neighbors, running for office. It begins locally, folks. So I don't want people to give up, even though I feel like the Democrats might not be built for this fight. I believe we are built for this fight. And even if you don't think you're built for this fight, work out. You got the muscles. And I feel like I have to do it because of that little girl you just saw right here. So that's my final thoughts.
All right. That is an amazing place to leave. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is us, people. It is us. So stick with us. We have every intention of sticking with you. We are at the leading edge of this starting 10 years ago. We are at the leading edge of this. Other people fall away. We will not. And that is not nothing. So thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure as always. Brian Karam, sorry we didn't get to see you come back, but I hope you're okay out there in LA. I hope Daddy's doing okay. And all of our listeners / viewers who are out in California, please take care of yourselves. And I hope everything resolves as soon as possible. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, live for the Nerd Avengers. To our moderators, you guys rock. To our commenters, our super stickers, etc., etc. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. And as Waj said, be kind. That is one of the most important superpowers we have. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.